I was going to talk about just the gateways to travel, which to me, it means different ways of traveling. So I've traveled just on my own, independently, and in some countries that's very easy. Other countries, it's a lot harder if you don't speak the language. Um, so, and I was going to just go over some of the things that I've done with different companies. So if you're interested in the most recent ones I've done have been with One Travel, which I really liked. A group with independent groups and with travel companies, and there are specialized groups you can travel with too. So one of the very first ones I did was sort of on my own, was to Australia and New Zealand. I really only planned on going to Australia. I was going to go to a conference in Cairns, but it was after I'd retired and I had plenty of time. And it used to be when you called to make your reservations using your frequent flyer miles, which I always use when possible. You usually called, and then they would help you make the reservation. So when I called, and I called at night, so usually it's not very busy if you call at night, and they were trying to help me. And she said, well, let's see, when do you need to be there? And I said, okay, well, I have to be in the northern part of Australia in Cairns on this date, but I would like to go to Sydney and see a lot of the southern part, and I'd like to travel around my own. So she said, well, let me check these schedules. And she came back and she said, well, is it okay if I book you through New Zealand? And I went, oh, sure. Would it cost me any more if I want to get off for a week in New Zealand? She said no. And I said, oh, okay, well, let me get off for a week in New Zealand and then fly from there to Sydney. So she did that. It didn't cost me any more miles, and I just had a great time going around by myself. And
Which
in Australia,
company was this, Nancy?
that was with nobody. That was with myself. So this is just independent travel. And then there's another way of doing it, which is with like specialized tours. So a lot of my traveling has been done with a company called Plant Expeditions. It can be found at plantexpeditions.com. And it's not your fancy kind of tour. It's like we go with the locals, and since we're looking for different kinds of plants, we usually stay in a place only 1 day or 2 days overnight and then go on to another location. So that's really part of what I really do, is because I grow bromeliads. And so on the plant expedition tours, I've been with this group called Plant Expeditions, run by Guillermo Rivera, who is, he lives in Florida, but he's actually from Argentina. And he speaks English, Spanish, German, and Portuguese just interchangeably with different people on the group. I mean, it's kind of funny to see him sitting there talking to people in English, and then he'll turn around and talk to the bus driver in Spanish, and then the people from Germany ask him something, and he turns around and talks and speaks in German. It's like, okay, this is just really interesting that he can just switch it from 1 second to the next. And that makes a lot of difference, I think, with whatever tour you go with. So besides going on my own and going with the Plant Expeditions, and the Plant Expeditions, I've gone to Peru a couple of times, Ecuador a couple of times. Where else with him? Brazil. Trying to think where else I've been with it. Anyway, and it's really an interesting way to go, because you have something in mind that you're kind of looking for. It's really good. So the other kind of tours you can go on through a tour group, which I would assume most people would want to do. I've gone with Gateway Travels, and with Gateway, I've gone to I've gone to Turkey, and on that one I went. They have lots of different kinds. They have solo travel. They have just a regular size group, which is a maximum of 40. And then they have small groups, which are usually a maximum of 16 to 18. And then they also will arrange solo tours. I have not done that for myself, and they will set you up for they'll also set up walking tours for you. So essentially what they're doing is acting like travel agent and getting you there, and they usually get you sort of a flight that doesn't cost too much. And on most of them, you can opt to use your frequent flyer miles or go with them. So they give you that option. And I would say with the gate one, the regular size tours are less expensive. And usually you want to, I don't know, if I'm going to go all the way there, I want to stay long enough to see something. I don't want to go for a 1 week tour. I mean, that just doesn't appeal to me at all. By the time you get there and you're tired and then you have to pack up to come back, you don't get to see that much. So I usually go for 2 or 3 week tours. Most of them are around 2.5 to 3 weeks. But they don't have to be. So on the small group tours, my older daughter, who is a nurse, wants to travel, and so we have to plan, because she has to plan her vacation so far ahead. I said, well, I can go anytime. When do you want to go? But she has to put in for the time off for vacations way ahead of time, so that she is so she wanted to go on small group tours. Well, that was the first small group tour I had been on. I'd been on the large group tour to Turkey, which was actually still wonderful, and I met a lot of nice people, some of whom I met again on travels. And then on the small group tours, you get to really get to know people. So on a small group tour, I went to small group tours. We went to Morocco, which was actually one of the best trips I think I've ever made. And partly because, the society is so different from ours. And the art was spectacular. The mosaics and buildings that dated back centuries. And in one place, we're walking through a field and stuff, and there's mosaics. And I'm going, oh my God, they're everywhere. And I don't know, I just felt like it was really and very interesting because we drove all over the place. There's some tours of Morocco that start when you come over from Germany to the northern part, to the blue Casablanca, and then went actually south and east. And then we went out all the way out into the desert, and stayed in a tent thing, which was very elaborate tent, very, very nice tent with rugs and everything in it, and wonderful meals, fun music and dancing and stuff. And the camels were all there. So early in the morning, we took camel rides out. And if we wanted, we also took one out at night for an extra thing if we wanted to. So, and then we went to a wonderful place where they dig up fossils. It's sort of like the thing with in China where the farmer out in the backyard finds something, he pulls it out, and that was the beginning of finding the Xi'an warriors. Well, this was the same thing. They had no idea there were all these fossils there, and this farmer digging around, he pulls up this big ammonite or something, and it's just wonderful, huge fossils all over the place of this place. And a couple of the places we stayed in, they had entire sinks in the bathroom and stuff, which just carved out of one big, huge piece of fossil that had all these fossils in it. And the guy said to me, like, well, just send me the dimensions of your sink and we can make you one to fit. I went, oh yeah, probably how many tons do you have to ship back? It cost a fortune. Anyway, it was really funny. So, but with the small group tours, I think you get a lot more individual attention. Also, when we were in Morocco, one thing you want to watch out for when you go to the Arab countries is you need to know when Ramadan is. And we hadn't really thought about that. We always look at what the weather is going to be like, because that's really important. You don't want to be there when some places it's monsoon seasons, and other places it's the hottest year. So you need to look at the weather stuff to see kind of what's a good time to go. I kind of like to go sort of on the cusp of what is called tourist season. So if you go early spring, or for us it's early spring, or their early fall, it's kind of the best time for weather and all the tourists are out of the way, which is always a good idea. So anyway, and let's see what else with them. They have it's very reasonably priced. I think the small tours do cost more than the regular size tours, but you really get to know people. And on this, let's see, on our tour to Morocco, there were people that I had met on another tour, which was interesting. And then then after that, this past spring, we went to Greece, and two of the people who had been on the Morocco one were also on the Greek tour. So like, okay, hi, how are you? and my daughter always ends up meeting with somebody else. There's always one other nurse on the group, and which is always kind of interesting. They've always got something to talk about in common. Anyway, one of the things that's kind of interesting about traveling with a small group is that almost all these people have traveled someplace else. And so you have great discussions and who they went with, which companies they went with, who liked it, who didn't like it, what they liked. But when I was going to say, and when we went to Morocco, part of it was during Ramadan, the tour leader, who was absolutely wonderful, who knew the history of everything, he was observing the holidays. So he would eat once a day at he said he usually ate around 4 a.m. because they can't eat until after sundown. But they also, what I didn't know, is they couldn't even drink water all day. And he's talking all day long to us about everything. But it was really interesting that whoops, the picture popped up on here. Can you see that? No. Sorry. Here, if I can get to share my screen, some of these pictures just came up for some reason. Anyway, so I think this one's, if this going to come up, I just had something come up from here. Oh, here it is. So if I share screen, I don't know if that comes up. Am I sharing screen now?
No, so you click the green share screen, then you click the screen you want to share, and then there's a blue share button at the end.
Yeah, but nothing comes up. I'll have to do it with you later because I see it and I did the green and I pulled up the picture and then all of a sudden it doesn't go again. I'll try it again later. Anyway, so where was I? So those are the ways I've traveled with Gate One. You'll also find that a lot of these, if you look up something like you're looking for a particular kind of tour. I mean, you want to go to Europe or you want to go to the Middle East, and you click on one of those tours for the Middle East or something, you'll find that almost all of them will give you like the 1 or 2 tours that they do, and then they will refer you, because all of these companies belong to something called the American Society of Travel Advisors. And I think they're all sort of behind the scenes, like, okay, she doesn't want that one because it's the wrong time of year. Why don't we give her one at Exotica? Or why don't we give her one with OAT or something? But so there are a lot of different companies to look at. And I have not traveled with OAT, which is overseas adventure travel, but I have a good friend who has, and she's really like that. But then she was sort of signing up some of the long hike things. And she went before I actually knew her. So what else? Another thing to do, like if you say, well, it's sort of scary to travel on your own. Not really if you speak the language. So no, I wouldn't go to Morocco on my own. Probably most of you don't speak Arabic, but if you speak French, one whole section of Morocco along the coast, you would swear you were in France. The hotels are all French. Everybody around in the hotel spoke French. It was like kind of amazing. And then it's a hop, skip, and a jump over to Spain from there. So it's easy to go between the two. Also, for almost all of these companies, if you want to extend and stay longer, or say you want to add on 3 more days in that place, they will all do that for you and arrange for you the hotel and everything for you. So that's another kind of nice thing if you decide you want to stay long or you have people you want to visit that live nearby. So another thing about traveling by yourself, I said the first place I traveled by myself really was Australia and New Zealand, which everybody spoke English, so there's no problem there. And I'm really big on taking the local bus or finding out what's local and going there if possible. And I took the local bus down to Rotorua from Auckland, and I ended up sitting with a nice old lady in the front who gave me a blow-by-blow description of everything on the way and the history and all the stuff. So you meet really nice people when you know, if it's a country where you speak the language. Another one that I went on my own that I would really recommend, and I would just tell you to talk to somebody who's gone there before, because I have a friend who just came back, but I didn't get to talk to her before she went, and that was to Costa Rica, because everybody in Costa Rica speaks English also, so no problem. But the first time I went, tell you kind of a funny thing. So, you know, we just got online and said, okay, we're going to Costa Rica. We got online. I had this friend was going, and she had looked at a place to stay. So we flew into San Jose. And from there, we really wanted to go to Manuel Antonio, which is way on the other coast. Well, driving in San Jose. So we just signed up and rented a car. Then once we got there, she decided, oh, I don't feel like driving. You do all the driving. Jeez. So we got the directions from the rental car place on how to get there. And I could follow the map fine. It was no problem. It was before we had GPS. So we're driving all through these curvy mountain roads and everything. And we finally got there. And then we had a great time there. We went all over the place. We went, you know, we already knew from somebody else, like, just you go to Manuel Antonio, it's a wonderful place to see all the sloths and monkeys and stuff, but hire a guide, because they have scopes that you can, and they know exactly where to look for a sloth. If you're going on your own and you're looking for a sloth, it is not likely you will find it, because they hide way up in the trees. So anyway, then we got ready to come back, and we said goodbye, turned in our key, and he said, well, you know the way back to the freeway. And I looked at him and I went, what freeway? Well, there is a freeway. So it took us 1/10 of the time to get back as it did to get over there, because we were flying back out of San Jose. So it turns out, oh, the freeway is only open on the weekends and only goes one direction. So if you're going the right direction, you're okay. It's a great big, 4 or 6 lane freeway, but they close half of it off and have it only go one direction for some weird reason on the weekends. They think there's just not enough business to do it. So anyway, it was very funny. So after that, I actually went back to Costa Rica again, and my daughter wanted to go with me. So we went, and I said, okay, well, if we're going, look at the map first. I'm not flying in and out of San Jose, because it's just a pain to get any place from San Jose. It's a big city. When we were there, pouring down rain, driving. And the one thing you need to know about Costa Rica is there are no street signs. They don't believe in street signs. So you just got to figure it out looking at the map. So anyway, this time we said, okay, we're going to fly in to the other side. So we flew in on the other side. There's a great hotel to stay right there. But we had rented a car from a local agency. I always like to go local when I can. And they picked us up at the airport. We drove about 5 miles to where their place was. And we had rented a car with a GPS this time. Well, it just made it wonderful. We went all over the place, Arenal and up to Monteverde and volcanoes. And it was, and it wasn't hard on before we left. Actually, I think I had reserved a place to stay online by just looking at it. And what we ended up with was really great. It was a little family-owned place with bungalows. So we had our own little bungalow, and it was very nice. But I will tell you, if you ever go to Costa Rica, to look up online, there's a tip sheet written by this couple who live in Costa Rica, and they love to travel and tell people about travel. I think it's their travel business, and it's called My Tan Feet. And if you look at My Tan Feet, they will give you more details than you ever needed to know. And you can ask them any questions, and they will write back and tell you every detail about what's a good place to stay, where's a great place to eat, what, it was just so nice because you're talking to people who live there, travel there, and want to help people. So I thought traveling my own to Costa Rica is absolutely no point in going with a company as far as I was concerned. Just if you rent a car, get a GPS with it and you can go anywhere you want. Let's see, what else? I did go to China, but on that one, it's funny, I went with the UCSD group years ago. We had a whole group of students who went, and I wanted to go too, so I went along. My daughter did too, so that was really interesting. I don't know if they're still doing any of those. That just happened to be the person who wanted to go and set it up, and it was sort of a meeting of students to students. So the whole group of students from UCLA went on a different bus and stuff when we got there, but we met up with them in different places. But that was a wonderful tour too. But that wasn't through a tour company. It was really done by a filmmaker in China who was trying to get American students to come to China. So that was a long time ago, obviously. So let's see, what else? Anyway, I don't need to do all the talking. So what other kinds of, there's a local group. If you want to travel, I would say, I haven't used this group outside of the US, but they do a lot of travel things inside the US and Canada. And that's one called Travel Zoo. It's kind of interesting. They have very good rates on some things. But I guess I prefer to put all my money into going elsewhere. So I did travel. I traveled in Mexico with another person, but that was just a small group of friends who went to Chiapas. And we went with somebody who was a plant expert too. He doesn't run tours all the time. In fact, he's sort of retired from doing any of this now, but it was a wonderful trip because he has a place down there and he goes back and forth. He surfs down there. So, and that was a great trip. I also, when I went to Ecuador last time, well, let's see, I have two other things. Watch out for, with any company, they usually have auxiliary trips you can take. So one of the things, like with Gate 1, you can see ahead of time what the extra things are, and you have pay extra for them. So it's always good to look at those ahead of time. And a lot of them, they will list and it'll say included, and then it'll say itinerary, and then it'll say included, and then it'll say extra expedition if you want to go. So I don't know, I usually pick up most of the extras, but when I went to Peru, let me see, the first time I went in 2012, I went with the plant expedition group because we'd gone all over Peru and up and down through the Andes. And then if you wanted to go to the extra thing, it was to sign up to go to Galapagos. Well, that was wonderful. And yes, I loved going to Galapagos. It is a place like no other as far as I'm concerned. And we were on a very small yacht that held, let's see, there were like maybe 20 of us total, because it was a family of 4, and then there was the 8 of us, I think. That was about it. And it's a small yacht. So at night, you motored from one island to another, and then you spend the day snorkeling and hiking through different, because each island is very different. And the tortoises are only on one island, but the blue-footed boobies are all on a different island. So you have to go to different islands. We did see some things like, I know National Geographic does tours to Galapagos, but oh my God, I would not have gone on that. It was a huge boat with hundreds of people all getting off at the same time. And I went, oh my gosh, that's terrible. They may give great tours and lectures with it, but I wouldn't want to go with a group that big, not to Galapagos, which is just small islands. You don't want to overwhelm the place. Another one I went like that where we had was in let's see, that must have been in 2012 when I went to Peru. There was an option to spend an extra, like I think it was like an extra 2 weeks going to Manu, which is an Amazon reserve. So, and we walked through different parts of the Amazon. We went mostly by small boat, the long boats they have. And then we stayed, they have different places you can stay. They're mostly like, very rudimentary, mostly like on poles up off the ground with a wooden floor and lots of mosquito net. There's plenty, I mean, you don't need to be warm for sure, but you do need to have mosquito protection there. And it was really wonderful. We saw river otters and all kinds of the macaws that come to the cliffs. We went out real early in the morning to the macaw cliffs, where they come in by the thousands to eat clay off the cliffs. That was really interesting. So let me see. So what else? What would you guys like to hear about? Anything else? I mean, I'm just talking about, I can talk forever about places I've been, but.
Do you have any information on Rosemary's going to Laos, Cambodia, maybe Vietnam? Any information about those places?
No, but that was on my list. Yeah, we're worried. We're signed up to go to Egypt in February, but we're thinking, oh, I don't know if the whole Middle East blows up, because I just saw that all their tours to Israel were canceled through the end of December. And I'm going, I don't know about Egypt now. So, but my second up one was to go on the, what was it, 16 or 18-day trip to Cambodia, Laos, and to go to Angkor Wat, which I've always wanted to see. That's our next list of things to do. If we don't get to go to Egypt, we might actually be switching to that one. So I don't know, we'll have to see. All I know is that Gate 1 does give one. And, I think it goes to Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. If you look at those, they're like, some of them are shorter, some of them are longer, some of them you get to go into home visits, others you're going to stay always in a hotel. So it's always good to look at the differences when you're thinking about that. But that's next on my list too, to go. I also want to go to Singapore Gardens, which I have not been to yet. So if anybody's been there, give me some tips.
So as far with your experience with Gate 1, you've had a good experience, because I was reading some of the reviews and the tours are good. But if you've had to, we've had a lot of travel cancellations and what have you this past year, with airlines canceling many flights or delaying. So they were not very good at coordinating those things that were out of the ordinary. What was your experience like with them?
Oh, we had nothing but good experience, but I would say I did read a review that somebody wrote in 2009 about their trip to Egypt, where somebody had switched them to a night flight from a morning flight. So I would say, and they had a terrible experience, but what I would say is that all along the way, check your flight. Check to make sure it's the same time you said it was. And when you get there, I'll tell you, I had the worst experience I ever had on a trip was my trip to Brazil last summer. Now, I was getting there on my own, but I was sold the ticket through American Airlines. We flew out of LAX. So we were supposed to fly out of LAX. We ended up sitting on the tarmac, absolutely dying in the heat for 8 hours before they said, well, you know what? The air conditioning isn't working in the plane, so we're going to have to switch you to a different one. And they switched us so that, well, first of all, it was a lot up to it, because we ended up moving from one terminal to the other by foot, which if anybody's been through LAX, you can walk for miles before you get to the other terminal. And then they switched us back. And then an hour or two later, they switched us back to the original one. It's like everybody was just ready to scream at them. So I got to Houston. I was supposed to switch in Houston to get my ticket, to get my plane to Sao Paulo. Well, from Sao Paulo, I was supposed to be on a local trip that they sold me the ticket through for American Airlines from Sao Paulo to Belo Horizonte. Well, I got to Houston, of course. There was no other flight because we had missed the flight by about 8 hours. So they had to put me up over. I was by myself. They had put me up overnight, which was way out of town someplace, even though there's a Hyatt right in the airport. They don't have to put you at the nicest and most convenient place. They just have to put you up. But they had a taxi take me there, pick me up in the morning to bring me back. But since I had to check out in the morning, I just sit in the airport all day waiting for the next trip plane to Sao Paulo. So I got the plane to Sao Paulo. I got off and I got there. Now, a lot of times I just carry my I always carry a backpack with a change of clothes and all my meds in it. Never put that in your travel suit. But I had to have, hiking boots and a walking stick and everything. So all of that was in my big suitcase, which I had checked. So I get to Sao Paulo and when I walked in, there's like all these different things. There weren't like counters. It was like you're coming into baggage claim. And there were like piles of luggage with different airlines named on it. And they were all unclaimed luggage. I'm going, oh my God, where is my bag? So as it turns out, could not find my luggage anywhere when I got there. So, and this was American Airlines. Got there. So I finally went by myself upstairs, found the American office someplace, and finally found some nice lady who was willing to help. And she says, oh, well, I said, well, look, I'm going to miss my flight to Belo Horizonte. So I need to have you know where I'm going for my luggage. Oh, yeah. No, we'll take care of it. We'll send it to your hotel. I said, you don't understand. We are in a different hotel every night. It's not a hotel. They're like whatever, places to stay overnight. So she said, oh, it's okay. It's okay. We'll fly it to wherever you are. So, and I said, I went down to get my other flight. And they said, no, you're not on this flight. And I went, well, here's my thing from American Airlines. It says, they said, nope, you weren't on yesterday and you're not on today. And I said, can you tell me what gate it's going by so I could, try to go stand by if somebody doesn't show up? Nope, can't do that. So I went back to the American place and I said, okay, so they're telling me this ticket's no good. And she said, oh yeah, well, Americans sold it to you, but I'll make sure you get the Belo Horizonte. So she walks through the whole place with me, finds me another airline, Azul airline, a different one, and explains to the lady in great detail in Portuguese, which I could not have done, why I need to be on this plane today. So she finally does and gives me a different ticket, but I have to go to a different terminal to catch it. So she takes me out the door and she says, see that green bus? That's the bus that'll take you to the other terminal. So I go to the other terminal and she'd given me a chit, say, oh, this is so you can eat lunch. Here's a voucher for lunch. So I get over there. It's like 5 miles away to the other terminal. So it's not like you can go back and ask a question or something. So I get there. There is no place to eat. There are 2 places that have some food, but they won't take American money. There is no money changer place over there. I would have had to do it at the Terminal 1. And they won't take vouchers there. You have to do that at the other terminal. I'm going, oh, you got to be kidding. So I thought, fine, I'll just sit here. So, and eventually I got on the other. Now, all this time, I'm having to contact my tour coordinator, who has going to send, since he knew I'd missed, LA had held me up and I missed the plane, that they, out of Houston on the wrong day. So I was a day late already. So he was going to have a driver come and pick me up at the airport in Belo Horizonte. So I told him the time I was supposed to come in. Well, now this all changed it because now I'm on a different airline and it's coming in 4 hours later. So I had to call him back. He has to find another driver who can meet me there because the other one said he couldn't come after that time. Anyways, a long story short, I get off in Belo Horizon and there's a guy with my name on a piece of paper. And oh, this is great. So he picks me up to take me. Well, it's about, since I'm a day late, it's like 8 or 9 hour drive to where they are that night. And it's very curvy. He doesn't speak any English, but we both had the same iTranslate app on our phone. So I would write something on my phone and send it to him, and he would answer back. So that was very convenient. Always have a translator on your phone before you go to, if you're going someplace where you don't speak the language. A lot of people think, oh, well, it's just Portuguese. I speak Spanish. I can handle that. No, it doesn't sound anything like Spanish. It's nothing like Spanish. Portuguese is terribly different. But I use the one called iTranslate, which you can write in what you want to say on one part in English, and then below it says it in the language, and then you can show it to somebody or send it to them. So that worked okay. But it was a nightmare. It took me 7 days to get my luggage. All this time, people were lending me socks. I didn't have my hiking boots or my pole. It was really kind of awful, because they had to fly my luggage to the right, my one suitcase to the right place, but it was not going to be, they want to, the flights only go at certain times to these smaller airports along the way. So we had to figure out a time, because they said, oh, we can get it there by this day. And they said, yeah, but we leave at 7:30 in the morning. They said, oh, we don't get there till 3 in the afternoon. So then you'd have to go to the next place that had an airport. So it took 7 days to get my luggage, which was really disconcerting. But anyway, that was American Airlines, and they screwed up my trip royally. And yet when I wrote the complaint telling them I thought they should reimburse me for at least 7 of the days, since they screwed up, I missed 7 days of the, not actually being able to really hike in the right way and stuff. And they just said, oh, yeah, too bad. We'll give you 30,000 miles. That's it. That's not acceptable. You ruined my trip. But you can also, I have not done so yet, but you can also write to the Department of Transportation and complain. But whether that does any good or not, I don't know. Essentially, they, give you all this stuff like, oh, the airlines will compensate you if they mess up your flights. They don't. There's nothing that makes them do that. And at at the place where the lady in American Airlines said, oh, who sold you this ticket? And I said, American Airlines sold me the ticket. And she's working for American. She says, oh, I was like, oh, no, we don't sell these tickets. Well, then what am I doing with it? So anyway, always good to look at all the little extra things that you could be doing. But I would say when somebody said like, okay, well, Gate 1 screwed up one person's travel, I will tell you that's not the first person that's ever gotten screwed up by any travel thing. And the airlines make it awful. I mean, I'm sure the travel groups have trouble with the airlines too, because they'll be all set to do something. But what we found with Gate 1 is I always like to make sure I got plenty of time to make the change, because sometimes they'll give you like only 2 hours to change planes. Oh, well, that is never going to be enough in Atlanta, never going to be enough in Miami, and it certainly isn't enough in JFK. You need to make sure there's enough time in between. So we called and asked and said, like, we'd like a little more time in there. Okay, so they fixed it out, and we got another time. So you just have to kind of be your own self-advocate a little bit on anything, even with the tour or the airlines. It's there's no substitute for that part of it, of being careful and watching what you get and checking in. I mean, you can check in on your airlines. Is this still scheduled the same time? Did it change times? You don't know. Anyway, so Rosemary, are you the one who was going to Southeast Asia? Was it Rosemary? I think it was. Well, anyway, what else? Can I answer any other questions? So Becky, have you traveled? Mary, have you traveled much?
Yeah, we just got back from Europe about a month ago. But we traveled on our own. We're Europeans. I'm Italian. My husband is Greek, so we went to both countries and we did it on our own. But we would like to, some of our friends recommended Gate One, and we've never really done a tour before, except for the China tour, which I had done through UCSD in 2013, and it was wonderful. But we're thinking about Africa for 2024, hopefully, when all this chaos settles down. Have you ever been to Africa on any of the tours?
No, I haven't. And that's a place I would want to go with a group, definitely.
Yes.
You can't go on safari on your own, no matter what you do.
No.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think traveling in Europe on your own is very easy.
Yeah, for sure. Especially like you said, if you speak the language, it's like, it's not a problem at all. Yeah.
I went to Switzerland, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and just I had a friend over there, and I just stayed at their place at night sometimes. But I just got the local train schedule, and oh man, I went all over the place.
Yeah.
And I decided to stay another night in Bern, and I call and say, "Well, I'm not coming back today." So
yeah.
But I just think it's very easy to travel in Europe, almost any place.
Yeah. This what is it called? The OAT?
It's overseas
adventure travel. Yeah, they have a really nice tour for Africa, and my friend used them, and they were very, very, very happy with them.
Did they go just to South Africa, or did they go on safari too? Or?
No, they went to the Delta, like South Africa, and then what is the Zambia, and then there's that other country. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, I'd like to do that too. So I want to go to Southeast Asia and to Africa, but those are two places I kind of wouldn't go just on my own.
No, yeah. I hear you. Me too. Especially Asia, it's difficult. The language is much different, right?
Yeah.
It's not Spanish where you could get away with.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. So.
Well, thank you very much. This was helpful.